Hello to all of you, and thanks for joining us here on The Object of the Game. For Coach Chuck Kyle, I'm Maureen Kyle, and if you've been tuning into the show, you know that we talk a lot about how sports, whether it's football, we talk a lot of football, or basketball, baseball, whatever it may be, sets you up to learn some of those life lessons that carry through to your careers, to parenting, interactions, building those relationships. And today we're talking to a special guest later on, John Fanta. You may know him. He is the college play-by-play announcer for the Big East. We're going to have him on in a few minutes. But because we have him on, and this is something that we have talked about a lot, just off camera and here on camera, is how playing sports at these early levels, like parents, if you have kids who are on the whatever youth sports team, how this is setting them up for a possible future career, maybe even in a sports organization. And we've talked about some of the people you've encountered, whether coaching or throughout the years, that have taken the knowledge and the preparation that they've had and have found careers in sports organizations that you wouldn't even imagine.
All right. People have to, what you see on the field, that's just a small end result of multiple careers, multiple jobs, multiple efforts. And people have to realize it is on the college level, it's a multi-billion-dollar operation. Needless to say, the NFL, okay? But we've, just as you mentioned about possible other jobs or whatever careers you can go into. There's several. A player for us years ago went to Ball and Wallace, Corey Gillisey, played football and baseball at Ball and Wallace. Well, Division III. Where are you going to go with Division III, huh? Mm-hmm. Well, when that ends up happening, he starts working, because the Cleveland Browns are right by BW, and just helping out. He's now the director of equipment operations for the Cleveland Browns.
Wow.
I mean, it was just a small job turns into an interesting career. We trainers, a number of guys that have gone on, these manager train. Well, I always thought it was important to say the managers could also learn how to tape ankles. You could always use that help or so on. Number of them go on to college, and they go to the athletic department, and they're helping tape ankles in that part of it, which leads on to what? In the field of medicine and things like that. I mean, that's happened all the time. Chris Gizzy.
Yeah.
And you know Chris very well. Great, a very good player. Went on Air Force Academy and so on. Strength trainer for the Green Bay Packers for years and years and years. So, now, there's the job on the field, but the multiple, and we've had people, Mike Toman, okay, I mean, he's president of the business part. Yeah. There's so many interesting other jobs connected to sports. When the whistle blows and there's somebody out, and there's a number of guys out on the field, there's hundreds of other jobs that are going on to make that happen.
Yeah. We talk a lot about teamwork. We talk about preparation. But also the theme that you're bringing up, and we'll talk to John about it too, but that foot in the door. And when kids have a passion for the sport that they're playing when they're young or in high school level, and it's not over. There's possibilities beyond that, but also being able to get your foot in the door and doing the dirty work can always lead to bigger opportunities.
Right. You're not just going to be hired right out of the gate as the vice president of something, okay?
Right.
That's not going to happen. You're going to be doing the sort of the entry, they always call it entry-level jobs,
yes.
right?
Yep.
Well, swallow your pride and do it,
right.
Okay, with a smile on your face and ask, is there more for me to do? And just keep doing that. Good things happen.
Yeah. And as we've talked to guests on this show, I feel like we've had them tell those stories of making sure you're that person who says, I'll do it. What else is there to do? And I think our guest today is going to be a great watch and great listen, especially if you have a kid who is graduating or close to graduation, whether it's the high school level, college level. This spring, we're in May. We're right in the height of that graduation season. You might have somebody in your life going, okay, what's next? Where do I go from here? Or maybe job turnover, whatever it may be. I think John Fanta is going to be a great perspective for everybody to just listen to his stories and hear how he got to where he is and how those opportunities, they came along, but he was ready for them. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. And you've known him. I mean, he played for you. You'll talk about that. But like you see these kids at a young age, and can you see the talents and the different aspects of their personality that would lead to jobs?
It doesn't take Vince Lombardi to sit there and go, well, this kid's on the team, or this kid's going to go on. He's going to go big time. Here's a guy, but you can tell especially the kid that, he's second team, third team, but he's working with the other guys. He is a great team man, and that sounds like a cliche sometimes, but I will guarantee you, people get hired because more than sometimes, they look on the resume and young man played football or he played basketball, he played on a team, and that influences people because they look at this person has experienced working with other people and being able to handle working with other people, and that he or she would contribute. So that part of it is essential because God-given talent, Lord knows, you reach a certain level. That's it. You're done. But there's some things that from that you can move along.
Those soft skills.
That's where sports really kick into gear.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to take the opportunity right now to thank our sponsor, Infinity of Beechwood and Akron. Thank you so much for sponsoring The Object of the Game. These are great guys. If you haven't been in there, you're going to want to check it out. Discover the perfect new Infinity to match your lifestyle at Infinity of Beechwood and Akron. Now under new ownership, St. Ignatius grads. From the moment you walk in these beautiful dealerships, you'll experience the luxury, care, and innovation that define the Infinity brand. They are luxury redefined. We keep talking about the QX80. Go check it out. Go test drive one and tell them that we said hello when you walk through those doors. Coming up, John Fanta. He is a great storyteller. Oh, yes. What a character John is. He's got some good stories for all of us. You'll want to hear how he had those opportunities, took advantage of them, and really rose through the ranks, and the people that he has encountered throughout his lifetime. This could be
amazing.
Somebody you want your kid to listen to. John Fanta will be joining us right after the break. Thanks so much for watching The Object of the Game. And our guest today, you've probably heard his voice, especially if you are a basketball fan. But we want to bring in John Fanta, who is a college play-by-play announcer for the Big East. And John, first of all, thank you for being here with us today at this moment in your life, which we'll go into for a second. But we're so glad that you're joining us.
Yes.
Well, it's a thrill to be with you, Maureen, and Coach. And I say Coach because Coach Kyle and I go back to St. Ignatius days. My dad, Jerry, played for Coach in the 80s as a left guard before he went to Mercyhurst. Mm-hmm. And then I played left guard for 2 years, so I did not play for the varsity team. And it's a good thing I didn't because I was a turnstile as a left guard. But it's great to be with you both because, as Coach well knows, the real first season of broadcasting that I ever did consistently was 2011 St. Ignatius football, guided by Eric Williams and Tim McVeigh, who Tim McVeigh is one of the very best that we have ever seen in Ohio high school football history.
Air Force Academy set records there. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So that was the first real season, Maureen, of broadcasting that I did consistently.
I love it. And
now it is a dream to be living out a dream that started back at St. Ignatius High School.
I want you guys, because I love this story, and I've heard it kind of, secondhand, but you played, like you brought it up, you played for a while, but talk to us about I don't know, Dad, if you want to reminisce about like the conversation. There was the conversation that you guys had.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
give a little bit more of a backstory.
This is part of a job that a head football coach should do. And John shaking his head. Looking back, John loves being with the guys. I mean, he was having fun. It was his friend, teammates, fun, all that. But there's a point where it's like, John, here you are. You clearly have talent with the microphone. And here we have the broadcast network we have, and you're well into it, and you're going, John, I think it's time to dedicate a little more to the microphone. And just being honest with you, you as a coach, it's not the easiest conversation, I'll tell you that, but it's a conversation that you owe it to the young man to go, maybe this is time to get away from this thing and get to what your talents are showing you. And of all, I love the kids that SIBN over the years, but John, you made the right move. Oh my God, you made the right move.
Do you remember that conversation, John? Tell us from your perspective.
I do. Yeah. Well, the first thing that always impressed me, even back then, was that Coach had well over 110, 120 individuals that he had to talk to. And he made it a point to talk to each one of us. Right. In addition to teaching English and in addition to doing everything on campus and all that he did for the school. So that was the first thing that stood out. Like, okay, Coach Kyle wants to take 5 to 10 minutes with each player. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking in and my heart was already sort of leaning in that direction. But I'll be honest with you, I never wanted to let my dad down because he played for the school and he was a very, very good player, right. Who ended up heading to college, and he blew out his knee, so it never took off from there. But he loved it, and he loved everything about it. I mean, we went to Ignatius football games. I can remember going out to Massillon with the whole town shut down. I always thought, like, you could go inside anybody's house right now because everyone is at the game.
Yeah. Right.
And we'd park on a side street and we'd march to the game, all the memories of going down to Xavier for games and going to Whitmer or wherever it might have been, Moeller, Elder. So I grew up on Ignatius football. And when Coach called me in and we sat down, look, what Coach is amazing at is he's always been able to tell people, hey, what they also need to hear, because that's what a good coach does. That's what a great coach does. A lot of coaches don't want to have the conversation, with their players about things. And I also know that at least in 2011, 2012, and there's another lesson to this, Maureen and Coach, that, certain players that were like me on a scout team or backups or, well on the bench, let's be honest, they wanted to still be a part of something. They still wanted to be a part of a team.
Yeah.
And I do think there's still a lesson in that, because I think everybody now is like, how do I be number one? How do I, sometimes you've got to start somewhere. So for me, my somewhere was by being on the bench, but supporting my teammates. But then guess what? I learned how much that paid off a year later when I needed an interview or I needed a nugget on the team heading into a game.
Yeah.
Because they were talking to me because I'm their teammate. Yeah. I played with them. So I went into Coach's office. We sat down, and he said, you know what? I love your passion for the game. You have passion for this sport. You have passion for the game. You are still a part of our team. And if your heart desires to keep playing, Coach, like, make no mistake about it, Coach never said stop playing, because he had other players that were kind of in my role, but everybody's important to the family atmosphere and, what we do at St. Ignatius. But Coach said, look, I see this broadcasting thing. Maybe that could be something. Maybe that could be the way for you. And that was our conversation. It was a good conversation. And a year later, I still was seeing Coach, but I would always, I can remember this vividly. We would talk on Tuesdays during game week, Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Eddie Dwyer would be there all the time. Great Eddie Dwyer. And Coach would be setting up the cones or taking the cones off the field.
Yeah.
Off the field.
Right.
You would be doing your rotation, and you had a rotation about it, and we would walk as you were doing the cones, and you would give me the 10-minute conversation.
I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah.
Multitasking. I guess I had to learn that. Huh?
I think you had to learn that very early on.
Yeah.
Very early on.
John, I love that you brought this up because, and this is the whole theme of this show, is keeping in mind what's really important through sports and what real life lessons you learn as you're playing sports at those levels, at the high school level, then if anybody plays in college, even in youth level. And we're going to go into that a lot more as we go through this conversation. But I hope you also remember that because now you're a dad. And one day your son, Andrew, right?
Yes.
Which
Andrew.
One day you're gonna have to have a similar conversation of like, hey Andrew, I don't know, baseball might be it might not be football, or football might be it, and it's not hockey.
Pat's going to get in. This will be his first appearance on a sports talk show, John. Right here, we got it right here at this show.
We got the exclusive.
We have the exclusive.
Yep, exclusive right here on the object of the game. Hey, congratulations.
Yes. It's what? How old is he now? A week and a half?
So Andrew, as we're talking, Andrew Gerard is 8 days old.
There you go.
8 days old and change. Yeah, coming up on 9 days old. Born 5/26 Eastern Time, Wednesday, May the 7th, 2025. And a moment that, as you know, Coach, and as you know, Maureen, you just never forget. My wife, Victoria, 36 hours of labor, followed by a C-section.
Yep, that happens.
So we were in it for the long haul. We were in it for the long haul. And then they say, okay, we're going in for a C-section. Put your garb on. We'll be ready in 10 minutes. 36 hours into that. And then it happened.
Aww.
As courageous
Mom and baby are doing well.
As courageous as men folk are. Oh, come on. We don't even get close to the birth idea. Forget it.
No. I loved my mother, and I think the world of all mothers, but my respect for them went up like a million times, as much as the highest number possible, because I don't know how they do it. And we got to, our first day home was the day right before Mother's Day.
So she got a good Mother's Day.
Timed it beautifully.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Well, congratulations. It's these type of conversations you're going to remember because it's difficult raising kids playing sports. You are going to have a wealth of knowledge as Andrew gets older, and it's going to go fast. Blink, and he's going to be playing t-ball for the first time. When we come back, I want to talk more about the opportunities, John, that you found going into your college years, because I know a lot of kids are graduating right now going, what am I going to do with my life? I love playing this sport. Is there a future in sports? Any organization for me? Or is it broadcasting? Is it front office? Is it somewhere on the field? We're going to talk a lot about that when the object of the game returns. Welcome back to the object of the game. Our guest today, John Fanta. You know his voice. He's a play-by-play announcer for the Big East. And John, we were just talking about your high school years a little bit. But I think right now, as kids are graduating either high school or graduating college, I think it'll be really interesting to delve into how you got to where you are today. Yes. And I know that you and Coach have been in touch throughout the years, but hearing about how it all unfolded, I think is just valuable for anybody out there. So you ended up, go ahead, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, what I hope that parents and maybe the young soon to graduate or soon to be seniors out that will watch this thing. I mean, what you decided, the way your route to what the college is, and I'd have to look to my left here and say the same thing for my daughter Maureen. Okay, really did contribute to what you're experiencing now, and that's what you would hope as a parent that it's hey, have a good time at college, great, but let's get a vision of what you want to do. And I think your story is great.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, and I appreciate that. It's very humbling. It's very humbling, Coach, to hear that from you. And I think it really starts with this lesson. Availability is the best trait. Saying yes is the way that you want to go. I would tell any parent to tell their kid, say yes if given an opportunity. Whether it's on a team, whether it's part of a group, whether it's a summer little job when they're in high school. I mean, I landscaped at St. Bernadette's when I was in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. And Coach, you and I would see each other at 8 a.m. mass on Sunday mornings there.
That's
you
right.
hit the 8 a.m.
That's right.
With your
Still
beautiful wife.
Yeah.
And I think they check your ARP card when you walk in because it's just old people. There's no young person there at all.
Exactly. So for me, the story really begins on the broadcasting side of things at Ignatius and then at Seton Hall. And it's really the same story twice, but it illustrates that God has a plan, I think, for everybody. And that you've got to be where your feet are. I tell people, be great at where you are on the ladder, and the ladder will keep climbing. It will.
Nice.
So for me, yep.
I was just the Seton Hall. You know, a lot of people would go, Seton Hall. How did he? Why that? I mean, you were. I mean, Maureen went to Fordham. You applied there too. You know, that's a possibility. You know, and your dad made a great advice. He said, "Hey, if you're interested in this broadcast idea, New York, got to go to school there." I mean, so go ahead. I just wanted to. The way this ends up Seton Hall, I think is interesting. Go ahead.
Right. So the way it starts with high school before college is I was a cameraman on a junior varsity basketball game at Ignatius, JV game, and we had a varsity crew announcing the game. So this is the winter after my sophomore football season ends. So I'm in high school. My dad told me, you got to stay down at the school. Make yourself useful after school. Don't come home and play video games. You know, one, I'm paying tuition. Okay. Two, go ahead and maximize your experience there. So I was a cameraman. I wasn't on the air. They said, hey, this is how we're going to start you. At halftime of one of the games, one of the kids says, my heart's not in this anymore. I'm running for student senate president. I'm done. He gets up and walks out.
Oh, my.
So was our moderator going to say to us, hey, I need a student from the student section to now call the game? Or is he going to say, hey, that kid who said yes to being behind the scenes on the camera, I'm going to give him a shot. He gave me a shot. That's how it began.
Oh,
As for Seton Hall, Linda Gabor, legendary college counselor at St. Ignatius. I say legendary because I think she helped so many. The late, great Dale Gabor's wife. Linda said to me, she was my college counselor, and she had such an amazing way about her. We were looking at Fordham. We were looking at Syracuse. We were looking at St. John's, St. Bonaventure. And she said to me, you know, while you're out there looking at all these schools, you might want to take a look at this Seton Hill University. And I looked at it, I go, it was very Hollywood movie. Like I go, it says here Seton Hall. She goes, oh yeah, Seton Hall. Yeah. She goes, you should take a look at that. She goes, since you're out that way, they claim to have broadcasting. So I went to all these places. I was very close to going to Fordham, Maureen. I thought the world of the place. Yeah. What an amazing school. Arthur Avenue, the atmosphere, just a terrific place. They had football, they had basketball, they had a variety of sports. For me, I love that place. And at Seton Hall, when I went and visited, what I found right from the get-go was I knew at Fordham there was going to be an amazing pool of competition, of talent.
Right.
And when I got to Seton Hall, they said, look, we have Big East sports. So I'm like, okay, they have high major level sports.
Right.
We have Big East basketball. Oh, we play our tournament at Madison Square Garden. Well, growing up in Cleveland, you hear of Madison Square Garden, you're like, that's the grand.
That is
Mecca.
That is, you've made it. Yeah.
So that really, I remember talking with my parents, and they said, look, they've got an open door. They're telling you can get on the air as a freshman.
Oh, wow.
You can get on the air as a freshman, but opportunity knocks. But wait, when I met with, I remember saying to them, could I meet with the athletic director? And a lot of these schools, I said, could I meet with someone in the athletic department? And they said, sure, we'll take you to the athletic director's office. Now, no other place, very rare would a college offer up their AD to a prospective student. I mean, that's just unheard of. That's not normal.
Yeah.
But the AD store was open, and he said to me, "Look, we can set you up here. We can get you started. We're willing to give opportunities. We're looking for students." Well, 2 weeks into the school year, my freshman year, I was the cameraman on a soccer game at Seton Hall.
Wow.
Now, because I called Ignatius football and we spread things out, I also didn't know a whole lot about soccer. I didn't call soccer at Ignatius. I'd never called a soccer game in my life. I actually helped with pregame, halftime, postgame, camera. I'd help out with that. So the game had been postponed a day due to really bad weather. And the next day came. The person that Seton Hall hired to call the game, they hired a professional. He couldn't make it. He had a car issue.
Oh, no.
They were going to tap into the audio feed of a student radio. The student radio station, WSOU. I'm an alum of WSOU. Loved it.
Yeah.
I had been in the training there. I wasn't calling games for them yet. Their crew was elsewhere. They were out on the road. You know, Maureen, things get shifted in the newsroom.
Yeah.
Now you've got some people filling in. You've got this happening. Right. Things are changing constantly. 5 minutes before the game kicks off, the head of the athletic communications department comes up to me and says, "Listen, I've heard about 10 minutes of your football tape. Could you call this soccer game? We have no one to call the game."
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my.
So that's why I say to parents and kids, what do you say to that?
Yeah.
I would have said no.
Right.
And then guess when they would have asked me next? Probably not for a while.
Right.
I looked at them, I said, yes, I'll do it.
In your mind, though, like a lot of kids, I mean, even adults would probably be like, well, I've never done that before. You know, that might have been the first thing out of their mouth. I don't know. I've never called soccer before.
Right.
I can try. Was there any hesitation in your mind? Like, what's going through your mind when it's like, okay, here's soccer. Go call soccer.
I said to myself, well, you know, I guess you hope you don't screw this up. But then I said, there's no one else to call it. You're not competing with anyone right now. Just use your cadence that's gotten you this far. Be enthusiastic. The broadcast was for Seton Hall. So, okay, it was a scoreless draw. Nothing really happened in the match. But during the match, when the ball was in the midfield, like when if you watch a World Cup game, they give updates around what else is happening, either in soccer or in this case, I gave updates on what else was happening for Seton Hall Athletics.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
And when the game wrapped up, there was a guy by the name of Jimmy O'Donnell, who's worked at Seton Hall for close to 40 years. He was in the corner of the press box. And I said, "Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. The Pirates earn a draw. They'll be back in action next week. You've been watching Seton Hall Athletics on the Pirate Sports Network." Took the headset off, and all I heard was
Aww.
the sound of an applause. And he walked up to me and he said, "When can you be back?"
Aww.
And I looked at him. And I said, "Whenever you need me."
Aw.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So but you know what? That's where Ignatius. Hey, can you call the second half of this JV basketball game? Hey, can you call this soccer game? Be ready when your number is called, because you never know when it's going to be called. And you also never know if I didn't say yes to doing something that I ultimately didn't want to do, being a cameraman. The same vein of, you know, I said yes to interning at CNBC in college. I didn't know anything about finance news.
Yeah.
But I learned how to be in a newsroom.
Yeah.
I learned how to be in a newsroom. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable on the journey.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I learned this at Ignatius from day one. It's okay to fail. Nobody's perfect.
No.
We have to accept the fact that sometimes we're going to make a mistake. But I used high school and college to do some of those things to get to this point where we're still not perfect. Maureen, you and I have probably had different things in the course of our careers. Coach, you've had a game where you're like, I should have done that differently.
Right.
That's what drives us.
Right.
Yeah.
You should want feedback. You should want to get better.
Yeah.
That's where you learn to get better. You know, you have to look. I didn't like the way that came across.
Mm-hmm.
I got to come back to that and fix it in my mind.
The other thing
Always
that
happens.
If you with feedback, if someone's giving you feedback, you shouldn't take it negatively. They care enough to give it to you.
true,
Right.
and they know you can take it. That's the other thing. I've never given feedback to anybody that I thought, oh gosh, they're going to have a meltdown and they're not going to be able to recover from this. But the other point that you made that I think a lot of young employees need to realize too, because I'm telling you, I hear it a lot where it's, well, that's not my job. Or that's not, well, I don't really want to be a cameraman. I want to be on camera, so I'm not going to do that. Like turning down those opportunities of, well, that's not my direction. That's not where I want to go. It's all part of a team. It's all part of a game. It's like you gotta play your part, no matter what part that is, where they need you at that moment. And look what happened for you. I think that story is so valuable.
My first year out of John Carroll, I got hired as, I'll be an assistant football coach. Okay, but I'm taping the ankles. I'm driving a bus.
Yeah.
You're the young guy, so that's your job too.
Yeah. And when we come back, John, I want to hear about the big break. Like what made this turn into a professional career? So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Welcome back to the object of the game. We have John Fanta with us. He is a play-by-play announcer for the Big East. You were just mentioning, we were saying we want to get into like that big break moment, because a lot of people, they do their college internships and maybe it doesn't go in the direction they thought. You've been talking about your experience, and then you had something you wanted to say, Coach.
Yeah, here. The guy we have right here, he's the voice of the Big East, the basketball. This is the guy, right? Mm-hmm. Well, come on. He was a young guy coming up, right? And they're always, and I think the adults out here should appreciate the idea, once you establish yourself, you should be that person that's going to bring somebody else along. That's the way I think this country has always worked, should always work. There's this appreciation that will continue to occur. And for you, I'm going to throw two names at you. How's that? I'm going to throw two names at you. Because I was reading your bio and I saw these names. That's about it. All right, Rick Gentile. Now, that guy, right, he was an established in his field, and he helped you out.
He did. So Rick Gentile was a producer for the NFL Today, the Olympics, and a lot of different programming for CBS Sports. So Rick, when the Big East reconfigured, so the conference, all this conference reconfiguration now where, Stanford and Cal and SMU are in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and Oregon and UCLA and USC and Washington are in the Big Ten. Right. All that changed. Well, before that, the Big East saw the likes of Louisville and Pittsburgh and Syracuse and Notre Dame, West Virginia, all these schools that were longtime members of the league said goodbye, said so long. So Rick came on when the league sort of re-identified itself with what they called the Catholic Seven, and you college basketball fans will know what I'm talking about. So Seton Hall, St. John's, Georgetown, Providence, Villanova, Marquette, and DePaul. And they added Creighton, Butler, and Xavier. And since UConn has come back. But Rick was really part of, he oversaw broadcasting for the new league in 2013. My freshman year of college was the first year of the new Big East. So when you're launching something new, you need new faces. You need new people. You're looking for people. One of the things he was looking for was students to help out with their broadcasting. He wanted to mentor people. So I had been covering the women's basketball team throughout their season in my freshman year. They were in the Big East tournament, which was being held in Chicago. Well, I'll be real with both of you. 12 years ago, women's basketball, women's sports was not getting covered to the degree that it is today, thanks to people like Caitlin Clark. Yeah. She's one of one, but Angel Reese and Paige Beckers for elevating the women's game to get that type of media coverage and whatnot. So for me, I was probably the only media member that was sitting courtside during the women's tournament in Chicago, and Rick was working it. And I was doing a hit along the baseline, recapping the game. Like you Channel 3 viewers see a Nick Camino or over on Fox 8 with Ken and their gang and whatnot. Like you see your local sports anchors doing something courtside. So I was doing my hit. I wrapped up the hit, And Rick walked up to me. He was wearing sunglasses. He looked like he was from Hollywood. Yeah. And he walked up to me and he said, "Who are you? And where are you from?"
Aw.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm John Fanta. I go to Seton Hall." "Oh, really? I teach a class there. I teach a class there every now and then for sports broadcasting." He said, "What are you doing?" I go, "Well, I'm a freshman." He goes, "Well, do you want this to be something?" He goes, "You've got something. I just watched you for 2 minutes." And so again, you never know who's watching
Right.
or who's listening.
Right.
You never know. Whether it's the minor game or whether it's the big game, you never know who's watching or listening. Somebody's kid could be on that team and they're a celebrity and they run a network or whatnot.
Yeah.
So Rick said to me, "Well, let's keep talking. I'd love to meet with you in New York City when things settle down." So Rick and I sat down, and I was a sophomore at Seton Hall, and he said, I want you to do some reports. He goes, "I don't want you to jump into basketball yet." Like, I wanted to jump into basketball. The Big East didn't have football, the new Big East. They did have football back in the day, but they didn't in this iteration. He said, "So can you do some stuff on soccer, cross country?" Now, I don't know much about cross country, obviously, but that's no excuse.
Yeah.
He challenged me. And so I was doing reports on whatever was happening in the world of the Big East, anything in the Big East sports world. And I would send him those reports, and they would put them out online. And, that turned into, can you do some women's basketball? Okay, can you do some stuff from Madison Square Garden?
Wow.
And things just gradually kept growing. And that started with Rick saying, giving me the challenge, giving me the opportunities to sort of get reps in college and, to grow. He would tell me, I didn't like that. He would tell me, you got to do this better. And when he did it in the most loving way possible, but he did it in a way that I needed to hear. I really needed to hear.
Right.
That's amazing.
I mean,
right place, right time,
and
too.
I hope youngsters are listening to that, right? Because those opportunities do occur.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it, right? And put yourself in a scenario that can happen, right? If I mention one more
That's
name,
it.
can I throw another name? I don't know.
Yep.
I'm just okay. Bardia Shaw Rays had some effect on where you are today, I guess.
A lot of effect. He and
Okay.
Pat Lyons. Pat Lyons, the Seton Hall athletic director. So Bardia, here's the coolest part about this. Bardia and I talk every day.
Oh,
we
talk every day.
That's great.
So Bardia is at Fox Sports. He oversees a lot of production. Bardia oversees and hired the likes of Alex Rodriguez, David Ortiz, Derek Jeter. He's responsible for that MLB October pregame, postgame show coverage. He has spearheaded Big Noon Kickoff on Fox, which has competed with College Game Day in recent years. And Ohio State fans know what I'm talking about. Those Buckeye fans who want the 8 o'clock games and not always the noon games. But Big Noon Kickoff, Bardia oversees that and does all of that as well. So Bardia, after my junior year of college, Bardia is a Seton Hall alumni. So again, connections, relationships.
Right. Yeah.
Bardia contacted Pat Lyons, the athletic director at Seton Hall, and he said, "Look, we've got some internship opportunities in Los Angeles. Do you have a student or two who may be interested?" So Pat came to me and said, "Look, this guy's a great guy. You would really love working for him." I said, "Look, where's the internship?" He goes, "Los Angeles, California." I had never been further west than Chicago, so but that didn't scare me. Nothing really scared me. It was just eye-opening. And he said, "You would spend the summer there." I go, "All right." Now, this is something good for college kids and high school kids to know.
Yes.
I'm not saying be taken advantage of, but I'm telling you guys right now, this is really good for you to hear. I said, "Well, are they paying for travel or housing?" He said, "No." He said, they'll pay you to do your hours, but they normally hire locals. Well, I had done work study. I'm one of four. I'm the oldest of four, all Catholic educations. A brother who also went to Ignatius, now works at Sherwin-Williams, Martin. Two sisters who went to St. Joseph Academy, Katie and Coletta. So we went to St. Bernadette. My dad was a local metal plating business owner. My mom works for the Ohio Lottery. So, they roll up your sleeves, 40 plus hours a week, put food on the table and whatnot. I wasn't gonna, I wasn't gonna ask them for help. I had to figure it out. Yeah. And I booked a one-way ticket. I took the internship. I wasn't saying no to
it.
No,
yeah.
you had to take it.
I could have been living on the sidewalk. I don't care.
Yeah.
It wasn't even about I would have sat outside the studio every day and waited to come in. So I took the internship. I booked a one-way ticket to Los Angeles. It was the summer I turned 21. It's quite a eventful summer to be in Los Angeles where you've never been, and start to be able to crack open a Miller Lite and whatnot. That was kind of fun. But Airbnb was fairly new. And I didn't really consult with a lot of people, but I'm like, I need to figure out a way to make this work. So I booked an Airbnb. I booked a room in, what was described as a complex. Mm-hmm. And it looked clean, which it was. It was like the things that they said, it did kind of say with an asterisk, there may be a roommate.
Yeah.
All right?
Oh, gosh.
So, but it's a great story. It really is. So I get to the hostel.
Oh, gosh.
And it was a hostel. It was a hostel. Yep. I get to the complex. I walk up and I walk into the complex, and it is a hostel. And I walk upstairs. And again, I've never been west of Chicago. I've lived in a dorm in my house in west side of Cleveland. And I walk into the room, and on one side of the room is a 60-year-old man from Africa named George. And on the other side of the room is me. And I walk up to George, and I say, George, my name's John. How are you? And George gets up and said, I'm doing well. I just immigrated into the country, and I'm ready to try to make an American dream happen. I want to make a better living for myself. And, we had known each other for 60 seconds. And I said, well, I guess we have something in common in the fact that we're both trying to make a dream become reality.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's how our friendship started. And we barely saw each other the whole summer because he was out busting his tail trying to make his dream come true and in business. And I was interning as many hours as I humanly could because I wanted to soak it all in with all of the Fox Sports talent, ranging from a Kevin Burkhardt to a Chris Myers to a Rob Stone.
Yeah, amazing.
I got to work with Pete Rose,
Wow.
Frank Thomas, Dontrell Willis, Landon Donovan in the soccer world. Like, it was so that I said yes. Some of it was unpredictable. The hostile situation I couldn't have predicted. But when my parents called me and said, "How's everything going?" I said, I'm living out the dream. And because I did that internship, because I worked directly for Bardia, the following year, when I was out of school, Fox Sports reaches out to the Big East and says, look, we've got a lot of games, and we're running low on people to call them. Do you know anybody? And the Big East said, well, he's a kid, but there's this Fanta kid who could end up being, something. And they said, wait a minute, he interned for us.
Look at that.
Oh, my God.
Look at that.
The more connections you make.
Yeah.
I didn't parents. I didn't fill out a resume. I had a resume, but that's not what got me the job. You know what got me the job? Being nice to people, working hard, and shaking people's hands, because when you first shake someone's hand, you don't ask them for a job.
Mm-mm.
You get the relationship to a point where you could make the uncomfortable ask, but it's comfortable in that relationship because the person respects and likes you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good story.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
That's a
We
story.
want more stories. We're going to take another quick break. I had this next section kind of labeled "Tell us a story," but John, you've been telling us so many good ones that we're just going to keep the conversation going.
Wow.
So we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are in the middle of some great stories from John Fanta, a college play-by-play announcer for the Big East, how he got to where he is. And John, we just heard you talk about like how the opportunity just got set up and teed up, and you were talking about connections. But you said the story continues. I want to hear how it came full circle.
Well, when I got these opportunities from the likes of Bardia and Rick and Pat Lyons, who I brought up, these different people, and I would always say, thank you. Thank you so much. I'd write the thank you note. Parents, I think I just put it. Yes, I did. I literally just put this down. This real life prop in the moment.
The thank you cards.
I have a stack of thank you cards, and I have them here because I do think that a handwritten note, there's still a place for it, and there's definitely still a place for it, whether it's a handwritten note or a phone call.
Yeah.
Because it matters, and that's how relationships are built. So even when you don't think you have to write one. So, I would do all that, and I would say to people, how could I ever repay you? And you know what they say back to me? The people who have helped me? They say, do it for someone who needs it someday and is in the shoes that you're in right now down the road.
Yeah.
Remember this feeling and do it for them. Pay it forward.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful.
In a way that's special. In a way that not, I'll just take a look at it and I'll get back to you. Look, Maureen, I'm sure that you've been in this role too. I mean, I've been in. I do get a lot of emails and a lot of texts from people. Hey, could you help me out? Hey,
yeah.
And I try to take as many as I possibly can. I would say I'm not batting 1,000 because sometimes if in the middle of March somebody reaches out to me, I don't get right back to them. I'm human.
Mm-hmm.
But I every time I get a call or a text from a student or from a kid, I am so adamant on making sure that they get helped and that they hear some of these things, because I think at the end of the day, what I do and what we do as storytellers, it's really cool, and we do get to tell some really unique stories, and I call a lot of fun games, and that's great. But if you're not going to be good to people while doing it, why do it?
Yeah.
Why do it?
Yeah.
Nope. The first thing I learned at my internship at Fox in big writing was nobody wants to work with a jerk.
Yeah. Yes.
Nobody wants to work with a jerk. And eventually the jerk will be uprooted. Eventually the jerk will be uprooted. So I tell myself that, and that's how things come full circle. Is now in my career, I've seen opportunities grow. I've seen the relationships grow. But, hey, my friend's son is trying to get into this. What can you tell them? I tell them what I told myself, or what I was told, and what I kind of told myself along the journey. Say yes, trust this process, and be kind to people while doing it, because you never know when they could be hiring somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's so true.
That's an important story. Right there.
Yeah.
That's important.
So as you get a special front row seat. We've been talking about this even off air, how like being in broadcasting, I think one of the appeals that people will always come up and ask me, and it's like, well, you got to be there. And for you're seeing some of these players at the very start of their career in the college level. And then are there any that you have followed or watched and saw their career grow? Now they're playing in the NBA that you feel like especially connected with?
Wow.
Well, I covered Jalen Brunson
Oh, my.
all throughout his college career.
Yeah.
So it's funny because in 2016, when Villanova was winning the national championship on a Chris Jenkins buzzer beater that lives on in history, forever, one of the greatest NCAA tournament shots ever to win a national championship, a buzzer beater. Jalen was in the corner of the locker room. Nobody was talking to him because at the time he was a freshman. I do remember at the end of the night saying something to him, among other press members, because it's like when the Cavs won the title. Maureen, you remember this?
Yeah.
The objective was, hey, talk to anybody on the Cavs. Get every perspective.
Just get everything. Yeah, exactly.
Just talk to them.
Yeah.
Bank as many interviews as you can. When you're live for the parade, just anybody who's out there that's with the Cavs,
right.
Talk to them. So we were talking to as many people as possible. But Jalen said to me, my goal is to be in these shoes as one of the main actors one day. 2 years later, he was the best player in the country on a national championship team.
Yeah.
27 years later, he is one of the best players in the NBA, and the Knicks could clinch a spot in the conference finals for the first time, and have a realistic shot of winning it all for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah.
And New York is just on fire as a result. So my point is, that right there, you don't know, where, how, when your paths are going to cross. Mm-hmm. Patrick Ewing. I never watched Patrick Ewing play, but when he gets live, but when he gets the job at Georgetown, right? I remember getting a sign. Rick Gentile said, "Hey, we need to sit down with Patrick Ewing. Can you go down to Washington and do it?"
Twist your arm. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. So when I sat down with him, a lot of people were like, "Aren't you nervous? Aren't you overwhelmed? He's 7 foot something." When he walked in, we started to talk about whether he could cook and, what his summer vacation plan was, or what we talked about life.
Yeah.
And that's what I always tell people, like, athletes, but people in the news, the leaders across the city of Cleveland, or the people that are doing community work, or that, a story about anybody. They're people too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
They're people too. And the more that you get on that basis with them, the more they're going to like and respect you.
Right.
So that's how, and I think the guy who influenced me the most there, and I'll tell you this briefly. Tom Hamilton and I talk a couple times a year because Tom Hamilton decided to call me one day.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Not the other way. Like I idolized Tom. Jim Donovan and I never really knew each other,
Mm-hmm.
but I always thought Jimmy did his job and lived his life the same way.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yep. Absolutely.
Genuinely.
Yes.
Genuinely. Nothing changed when the camera went on.
Nope.
And
Nope.
that's what Cleveland's about. That is what Cleveland is about. What you see is what you get with the lovely city of Cleveland. And I think that goes back to kind of where I'm talking about this this journey is it's been rewarding, but it's also been, when you learn from people how to do it, and you learn from people to pay it forward, you can't fake that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And you're talking about, I mean, I think that especially people from Northeast Ohio have that salt of the earth quality about them, where it is like you can sit down across from Patrick Ewing and talk about, I don't know, how you make your omelet. Like, you find that way to be relatable. I don't know. I like to think that the people of Northeast Ohio don't have that big ego about them. And so,
No.
That's where you find that common ground. You're not coming in being like, well, you got to talk to me because I'm so important, and a lot of the players that you're talking about, like they're probably from a similar town or a similar situation, and they probably really appreciate that connection and that relatability that you bring.
True.
And that's probably why they open up and trust you. And I think that that's important for anybody in any business or any situation, any college kid, freshman in high school, to realize that being able to relate to somebody on that human level is always going to be the start of that relationship.
Yeah. You mentioned Jim Donovan,
Mm-hmm.
and Maureen worked with him, and we go back, by my era of young coach, young reporter, and all that sort of stuff. And you hit 100% on Jim Donovan, whether the camera was on him or off. That was Jim Donovan. He was just that guy, and he just fun. I mean, I always kid the first state championship we had. He was on the sidelines covering and all that stuff. I hugged him 40 minutes before I hugged my wife.
Yeah.
And I'm out in the middle of the field. Hey, Chuck, here we are. And he's, like, you can't. All right, Jim. Wow.
Yeah.
That's it, though. There's relationships that are built.
Yeah.
And, then I got to know Patrick in a special light where we could text. And, now it's the likes of Rick Pitino. And, I built something special with Jay Wright. And it's these coaches that you learn how they drive their players, too. I mean, I have my notepad out at these shoot-arounds and at these practices saying, how do they do it? It's remarkable to see, Dan Hurley, who won back-to-back national championships with UConn. I've sat in on a bunch of his practices, and, a lot of people have said, Dan's a little crazy. Guess what? We're all a little crazy.
Yeah.
But his crazy is crazy. He would admit it's crazy, but why does he have success? Because he's unapologetically himself. Look, the first time I talked with the agent who now reps me, he said, I think you have a bright future. He said, I don't know if it makes the most sense for us to be working together right now. I just based on where you're at, I don't want to be taking money from you. Mm-hmm. I like you, but let's stay in touch. I didn't take that negatively.
Right.
When we ended up running into each other 2 years later by chance. We sat next to each other at an event. Total chance. And he said, how about we talk again? How about we talk again? And one of the things we talked about was, look, I don't look like every play-by-play announcer or news anchor. I don't sound like them either. But that should not be a hindrance. That should not be a negative thing. I want to tell each parent this about their kid. Your kid is himself or herself. I know you're proud of it. They should be proud of it too. I'm not playing the victim card. I got bullied a little bit in school. I'm sure there's a kid out there who might have got he's the kid who talks sports. Not at Ignatius, but definitely growing up in grade school because I talked a lot. Probably annoying, but I talked a lot.
But and it served you well.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's that type A kid in grade school. Maybe there's a parent out there, and I hope there is, that's listening to this, that's thinking, why can't my kid be like every? No, your kid is himself or herself, and they should be proud of that. And just because they might be a little more conversational, I'm telling you, they have a bright future too.
Mm-hmm. And it goes back to what we started out talking about too, and you'll see it because now that you're a dad, you're going to get into it. There's so many parents out there that it's like, well, my kid needs to be the star of the team. And that's what it's so focused on. And it's not looking at the, because there's all this peer pressure. Believe me, you think you're not going to get into it, and then you get into it, and then you're like, oh.
I know.
But I like what you're saying because your talents were clear from early on. Then when you're a talker, you're a talker, and that is where your career headed. And if you didn't have that ability when you were young, then you wouldn't be sitting where you are today. So, all right, we got to get to after the break. We're going to get to the homework part.
All right,
John,
did you have coach for a teacher?
I didn't, but we spent enough time. I sat in on a couple of his classes. Yeah. I know that much.
You know it. Okay.
I know that much.
All right. Well, we're going to have a little English lesson when we return. Welcome back to the object of the game. If you have watched us until the end of any episode, you know that this is time for the vocab lesson and the quote. And we start with the vocab word.
That's right. I don't know what he picked out.
Mm-hmm.
I sent him the list. And again, themes, being English teachers, themes that would certainly fit sports, but also in life. And so John assured me that he was ready, that he did his homework. So we're going to find out right now. All right, John, come on. What'd you come up with?
I came up with genuine.
Love it.
And versatility.
Nice.
So versatility, I do think is very, very important because first off, in the sports world, the more different things you can do for a team, the more of a chance you're going to have to get on the floor or on the field. Well, in our broadcasting world, if you can be a podcast host, and if you can anchor coverage, and if you can be a reporter, and hey, if you can do play-by-play or color commentary or whatever that might be, you give yourself a better shot of what? Of staying in it. Mm-hmm. Of staying in it and of creating value for yourself. And I think for me, that was the yes man mentality, Coach, when I saw that list of passion and of enthusiasm and of, selfless nature and whatnot. And all those things are so important. But I do think I talk with a lot of kids and they say, I want to be a football play-by-play broadcaster.
Mm.
So guess what? I'm 29. I want to be a football play-by-play broadcaster too professionally. Guess what? I'm not one. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because there's actually I'm learning of new inroads to get there. Right. Some people don't make it on television until they're 40 years old, till they're 45 years old. For me, I'm just grateful and lucky to be where my feet are, be where I'm at. You're not all. It takes effort to get to number 1 in the program, number 5 in the program, number 10 in the program. So if you're 25 or 30th in the deli line, just be the best at that, and you're going to grow in that line. It's okay. And, I'm a new dad. I will try to tell my son that. That's absolutely my goal and my vision because, look, I think it's important. Versatility is really important. So for me, you know what? When I jumped into the broadcasting world, they said, can you do camera? When the kid says to me, John, I want to be a play-by-play football announcer, or John, I want to be a lead anchor on the news. Do you know how many lead anchors started out by just field reporting or by
Running the
production
teleprompter.
Yeah.
That was me.
There you are.
And if you didn't run that teleprompter, are you where you are now?
No, because I had to get my foot in the door. Because then, same lesson. Then there was a breaking news report. Everybody was out. They were like, okay, you go. So, yeah.
That's it. That's versatility is really important because the more you embrace it, the better chance you have of finding success.
Yeah, that early in the broadcast when you talked about 5 minutes before the soccer game, and you said, "I'll do it."
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to do it.
You did it, and look what happened.
That's it. Coach, it's like you with, people would always say to me the week of the game, "Yeah, who runs your special teams?" Our head coach. We don't have a specific special teams coordinator. Coach, you ran the offense. You had to jump in. You're jumping in everywhere.
That's when you're a head coach, you coach. You're ready to coach everything because come on, kickers, come over with me. That's the way it is. Yeah. It's high school.
That's the way it is. Come on. It's you're not being a one-trick pony. I think only limits the pony. It only limits you. Just be willing to get outside that zone and be versatile, and then genuine. I can't be Al Michaels. I can't be. Right. Bob Costas. I can't be Joe Buck or Jim Nance. Right. I have to be myself.
Yeah.
And I think you learn from people. I grew up listening to Joe Tate and Tom Hamilton and Jim Donovan. I mean, we had a old school stereo radio in our bedroom, and I think that thing was on WTAM 1100, and 850 WKNR almost all the time. Because I wanted to listen to I was learning before I even knew I was learning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And I think you bring up a really great point because as I'm coaching some people now in presentation skills and who they are in front of a crowd and everything, and it's so important to not do an impression of somebody. Right. Like so many people think, well, if I want to get into that or if I'm up in front of a group, well, I got to act like so-and-so. No, you got to be you. Because anybody can sniff out, and I'm sure that's when you had all those people go, this kid has something. It's because you were being you and you were being genuine. Because if you were trying to be somebody else, that's what they're seeing. They're going to be like, that kid, he's trying to do it.
There's only going to be one John Fanta.
Right.
I'm telling you right now.
Right.
Well, I appreciate that. And there's only one Chuck Kyle, and there's only one Maureen Kyle. And that really means a lot coming from you, Coach, because you are an all-timer and one of my goats. That's for sure, and a champion, but not just on the field, but in the students that you taught. I know how much those students meant to you as much as you did the people you coach. So it's that's it. Being genuine is so important in this because kids are smart, but the viewers are smarter. If you're a fake, they will notice it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, speaking of teaching, he's going to teach you a quote here.
Here we go.
This is one that you are going to use in your adult life. I promise.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, John, I taught Chaucer and Shakespeare. So, Maureen has constantly committed me to come up with a Shakespeare quote that would fit.
Because
something.
in life, to be fair, you will quote Shakespeare in regular life. Like we'll be walking around the house. I was walking around the house as a kid, and then there would be a Shakespeare quote thrown out about something.
Some of them you're surprised. That really came from Shakespeare? I didn't know that. Things like that.
Yeah.
Perfect for a halftime show, I'm sure, John.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You have to squeeze this in there.
Put it in there. All right.
In my notes.
Now this is here we go. This is the first time that it's Shakespeare, but it's from a sonnet.
Okay.
Because
sonnets.
playwright. No, he wrote sonnet, the English Elizabethan sonnet. Okay, all right, good. Now, I have to say, you're going to listen to this. There is plural possessive. This is grammar now, John. You remember plural possessive.
Mm-hmm. Possessive.
All right. So it's S and then the apostrophe.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody got that? Pat, you got that? Don't put apostrophe S. It's plural possessive. Okay, I'm sorry, but then now keep that in mind. Here's what happened. Here's from sonnet number 78. Did you remember the first 77? No, but 78, I don't know. Whatever. Alrighty, here it is. In others' works, thou dost mend the style. All right, let's interpret. In others' works, you're watching a basketball game, extremely talented, and there's their amazing skills and so on, right? But it's a layup. It's a layup. If people turned the volume off and just watched the game, it would not work well for a lot of audiences. It really wouldn't. It would be just a layup. That's all.
Yeah.
But there you are going, oh, what a play by Patrick Ewing. He drove, and then, there's just a little bit more adrenaline flowing for the audience now.
That's it.
And that's the truth. That's the truth. You turn the volume off. There's guys running around. They're running around with this basket. But you don't get the true appreciation. So in others' works, thou dost mend the style. You're the one that gets the people to really understand what that layup really was. Okay? Great. It's 2 points. But to understand how that occurred, the play got there and the way the guy did it, they need you to interpret that. So you got to continue to do that. According to Shakespeare, you got to keep doing it.
I tell people it's my way of playing the game. Coach, you told me, hey, why don't you call games, or why don't we go into the broadcasting world? Well, I still prepared for the game like I was in the film room. Sometimes some of the position coaches would say, hey, why don't you come in the back? You just see what we're working on. We trust you. Keep it to yourself.
Right.
But you're part of our team. And that was so cool. But, I'm coach, I called the 2011 season, but my senior year was 2012-13. So I also had the pleasure, even though it didn't go our way, of calling the legendary playoff game with Menor. And
Pat was with you, I think, right?
Pat was with us. And Pat was with us, and I'll never forget Mike LaManna finding Michael Siragusa in the end zone to force overtime. And I said, Siragusa leaps into the air, makes the catch. It was 4th down. Touchdown, Wildcats. They still have a pulse. And my analyst, Greg Zeiden, was breaking down the play, and I looked to my left. And I said, Ryan Franzinger, on the defensive side, is practically standing on the table right now in jubilation because the Cats just need an extra point to force overtime. And, it's funny because I remember the play call. Where we were broadcasting, the window was right next to us. And I had a clear vantage point to all the coordinators. And I was watching Coach Restifo, who's a dear friend, God rest his soul. And Coach was calling, he was as locked in as I've ever seen him calling a play. And when it worked, to extend that game, which was an all-time game, the emotional reaction, that's where, as a broadcaster, I could share some details there that the listener or viewer would not have known otherwise.
Right.
That, up in the Wildcats press box, Nick Restifo was as adamant as he's ever been calling a play, and Mike LaManna and Siragusa, they doctored it up. Or the Wildcats were down 17-3 to St. Ed's at Brunswick's Judy Kerr Stadium in 2011, and Blake Thomas went to the heavens and caught a touchdown, and McVay scampered for 40 yards. So it's that is so true, Coach. We do paint a picture.
Yes.
There was no picture. I'll never forget this picture. There is no picture then, and you have to remember this game against Akeel Lynch and St. Francis on a night where I don't know how we played football.
Right.
You remember that game?
Oh yes, probably shouldn't have.
Probably shouldn't have.
It was.
The wind was 65 miles an hour.
It was.
It was rain. It was rain left and right. And we won. Somehow won.
It was just complete mud.
This is the game where you've talked about the kick, where you told him to kick it into the...
Yeah, Tim
It's come up
he's
on
the
this show
kicker.
before,
He
John.
goes on to kick for the Air Force Academy. And he was like, all right, aim way over there, way over there, and watch the ball curve and maybe go through the uprights, right?
There was a field goal in that game that as the ball was going over the left upright, I said, and the officials both looked at each other, and I could have sworn one of them went,
Yeah.
a little shrug and just said, it's good. They didn't, none of us knew. That was I hope somebody remembers that. We both do, but man, that game, I was in a press box the size of this little corner room. We had a space heater right behind us. If I had taken one step back, Maureen, I would have been burned. It was a wild night in Buffalo. But that's just it. That's why we do the games. That's why we do podcasts like this.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to come out of it.
Yes, thou dost mend the style.
Yeah.
You guys put that picture even more vividly than just watching it.
Yeah.
That's a gift that you have always had, John.
Always.
And will continue.
Yes.
All right.
John, we have taken too much of your time as a new dad. I'm sure it's
got to go change a
feeding
diaper.
time.
Get over there, buddy.
Diaper's probably full. Look,
I know.
We appreciate the time you've spent. I love all the stories. It's been great to see you guys reconnect here on the show, and I'm just so appreciative that you spent time with us.
We won't take as long as we did between our interactions last time. We'll do it again soon.
Excellent.
I love what you guys are doing, and congrats on the show, and hopefully we see each other very soon.
Yes,
Yep.
we'll have
Sounds
you in
good.
next time you're in Cleveland. You come on in.
Come on, there's an extra seat right here.
We
All
have
right.
plenty of
Love
space. No space heaters in the back.
No.
We got plenty of room. Plenty of room for you. John, thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for watching The Object of the Game, and we'll see you back here next time.